Welcome to Behind the Windshield with Dennis the Apprentice.
Thank you.
Awesome. So this is we're doing this because you're actually leaving.
I am, sadly. We were just talking before this. Gene Johnson Plumbing is the best place that I've ever worked in plumbing. Yeah.
Awesome. How many places have you worked?
Well, let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, including Gene Johnson.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Well, let's start at the beginning. How'd you find the trades?
So, I found the trades. I was really just looking for a job to save up for college, right? Because college is the next step after high school. At least that's what everybody tells you.
Yes.
So I was essentially just looking for a way to earn money to save up for that. I never expected that I would end up enjoying the trades, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I still was stuck on, well, I've got to go to college. So I did a semester of schooling. And it's not that I didn't enjoy college, but I realized that I really enjoyed trades more.
What did you find that you enjoyed?
It's extremely rewarding. You are working in the real world. You're working on real life problems. You're solving problems for people. And at the end of the day, you can see your work and you leave satisfied.
Awesome. And some people, I hear people say they never imagined that helping someone would be so rewarding as well. Like,
Yes, yeah. You're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. Now, I'm not exactly a people person, but I love that you're working one-on-one with a customer, and you can just see the sense of relief for them when their problems are taken care of.
right? I don't know anybody that doesn't like you. Just so you know.
Oh, that's
Little
good.
feedback.
That's good to know.
I think you're a great people person.
Oh,
Awesome. So how long did it take you to figure out you liked it? Like, how did that?
Well, see, I started in remodeling work, and that actually, it took me a while to see. At first I was like, I can't do this. I can't picture myself doing this because it was hard work, and there's a pretty big learning curve. But really, so it was once I got into plumbing, the day one of plumbing, I already had some experience in the trade, so I kind of got the feel for what it's like working with tools, hard, somewhat hard labor. But once I got into plumbing, I realized I really enjoy this.
Do you remember what it was about it?
It was just the you start out in the morning, you meet at the shop. I get in the truck with an old master plumber from New York City, and we drive to the first job. We introduce ourselves to the customer. We diagnose it was just that whole process of going on a call, and then that call we were done with in a couple hours, and we had another one. And so it was kind of that routine of what the day was like, and it was just at the end of the day, I just really knew that was what I wanted to do.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't think anybody grows up wanting to be a plumber.
No, I never would have imagined it. Yeah. And I was good in school. See, people sometimes have the idea that trades are for people who don't do well in school, and that they're an alternative to higher education. I'm kind of an example of I did great in school, and I would have continued in college, but it was really just I enjoyed plumbing more. So
awesome.
Don't be, any young people looking into trades, don't be Yeah, don't have that idea that it's something to be ashamed of, that people will think of you less, you know. So
Yeah. When people see you guys' plumbing work, they you can't help but understand that someone is really good and really smart, actually.
right, yeah. It's been 7 years that I've been doing this, and there are times where I still feel like a fool sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
where it's at the limit of my capacity to understand, you know,
Right.
certain things. Yeah.
So we're always learning.
Yep. You're
Yeah.
always learning.
I interviewed an apprentice and he said he hated school because he didn't like to learn. And then half an hour later, I asked him, what is it about plumbing that you like? And he says, plumbing is so vast and there's so much to it that I know I'll never quit learning. And it was like, did you hear what you just said? That you didn't like, it's just a different kind of learning, right? It's more of a kinetic, hands-on, making things work learning.
Right. Yep. And I mean, I kind of consider it like, if you're, you know, some people, it's almost like, what would I call it? Like cousins to engineering in a way,
Oh yeah,
where it's like, it's your mechanical engineering, that, you know, it's like you're dealing with mechanical systems, but it's in, you know, it is with your hands. It's in real life, you know. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Especially in hydronics and stuff, you get in the hydronic world and look at all that. Like
Right. And
those are engineers building that. They just don't know it.
they are engineers, and I am not a hydronic technician, but the little bit of the classes that I've done here, I've realized, I mean, it's complicated stuff.
Yeah,
It's very intriguing. Yeah.
yeah. Well, if he would have stayed,
I know. Yeah. Unfortunately,
yeah,
Virginia does not have hydronic heating, so
they don't.
no, they don't, which is sad, but yeah.
Interesting. It gets cold there, doesn't it?
It does. It's colder than here,
Yeah,
so it's just,
interesting.
yeah.
Very cool. Um, so how do you? So how long? What was your apprenticeship like?
So I did. It was every day you were working under somebody. You're working with several different people, depending on what size company you work for. It is, I would say, starting out at a larger company would be in your best interest, because you have several people that you will be working with, and you learn a little bit. You learn different things from each guy, because every plumber has what they're good at. There's nobody who's really good at everything. So if you work with a company that has multiple technicians, you get a better feel of, you know, maybe what you're more interested in. So, but my apprenticeship lasted for about 2 years, before I started running calls on my own. But you kind of, you know, like you guys have here, as a junior tech role.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once you get in a truck, you realize how much more you still have to learn, you know.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you don't realize, you start to think you know a lot, and then you get on your own, and you realize, oh, I should have paid more attention.
Right, yeah. You, in some ways, forget a lot of what you thought you knew, and
Right.
and that is the nature of plumbing. Is there's such a variety of jobs that you'll see a job one time, but it might be months or years before you see the exact same thing, and so sometimes you can forget a lot of information that
Right.
yeah.
Right. So what did you do well in your apprenticeship? What would you recommend a young person getting into the trade, starting their apprenticeship? What would you advise them to make sure they do?
Make sure that the technician that you're working with knows that you are interested in plumbing. You know, that you're, of course, there's a time and place to, you know, while you're driving, to, you know, not always be talking about plumbing, but I would encourage asking them questions. You know, you go on a job, you see certain things. Really, when you get in the truck after the job, ask them questions about that to dig deeper. And that will really impress who you're working with. It will really help you learn more. So that's one tip. And also try to get to, this takes some time, but always try to be able to, I guess, how would I put it? Not have to be told everything to do. So like try to find things on your own to do that will help the job. And so kind of be preemptive with some of those types of things. Yeah.
It takes a little time to figure out.
It does take, you're not going to automatically, you're going to be lost right at first, so in that first, maybe several months even, it's okay to kind of hang tight and wait for instructions.
Right.
But the longer you go, the more initiative you can take on your own.
Cool. What do you wish you did differently in your apprenticeship? Looking back, if you could do it all over again.
That's a good question. I'd have to think about that some more. What would I have done differently? I don't know.
That's awesome.
I'm kind of stumped. I'm not.
You must have did a good job.
I have more things as a junior technician,
Sure.
although it wasn't called that. I have plenty of things then that I wish I would have done differently.
Okay, let's talk about that.
So
junior tech, you're kind of on your own, doing smaller type, easier calls, or
yeah. So being on my own, the first 6 months of that or so, I was still trying to get my bearings and everything. But it was almost like after that, I got to that place again where I thought that I knew everything. And so I wasn't really studying things. I wasn't looking into things. I was winging it way more than maybe I should have. And, for a couple years, I probably was that way, where it was kind of like, well, I thought, okay, this is all there is to it. But it was almost like a few years later, I realized like there's actually way more to this career than I realized. So yeah.
Very cool. So now as a tech, how do you know you've got a good apprentice with you?
We'll try to boil it down to mainly that they're interested in the job, that it's not just a way to make money, that they actually enjoy it.
Their mom didn't make them go get a job.
Right. Yeah. So they're interested in it, and the way they're interested is, do they talk about it? Do they ask questions? That those sorts of things. So that's one thing. Also, an apprentice that takes initiative, I would almost rather have to tell the apprentice not to do something, like let me do that, than have to tell them everything to do. So technicians like when, now everybody's different. That's me.
Sure.
Some guys, might not want.
Yeah.
Right. You want to run it by, if it's something complex. Yeah. You don't want to mess anything up. But I just mean with the simple tasks, it just takes some initiative with that. Yeah.
Totally. Makes total sense. How do you know when a guy's not going to work out? Like, what's the first hints that, this guy's either not a good fit, or he's probably not meant to be in the trades, or plumbing's not his thing, or what sends up some red flags?
If they complain about, say, getting in a crawl space. Now, it's okay. No, not everybody loves doing that. But if it's really something that they hate, that type of thing is going to be hard, because there are going to, there's certain parts of the countries that maybe don't have crawl spaces, but pretty much everywhere does.
Yeah.
And you can't just show up to a customer, and if they have, you have to do some tough things sometimes.
Right.
And so, starting out as an apprentice, it took me a while to actually be comfortable working in a crawl space. Like
Right.
it's stressful at first. But if you can't get over that, then it's not for you. There are some very difficult aspects of the job, physically speaking.
Some people are just claustrophobic. They just literally can't handle
Right.
that kind of a situation.
Right. And that's how the first, maybe even up to 6 months, it's when you're in that space and you're trying to work on something that's already frustrating if you weren't in a crawl space. And then you're in a crawl space and you're claustrophobic. You're literally on your belly crawling to get from, that's where it can get really stressful.
Right.
But you do learn to stay calm and to, not get frustrated, things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. So let's step back. When you're an apprentice, I'm sure there were techs that you liked and didn't like. So what if you think about your favorite tech that you liked to learn, or you learned the most from, what were his attributes that attracted you to him and you liked to work with him?
His attributes were actually the same. Now that I think of it, some of the same attributes that make a good apprentice was that he really loved plumbing. It's the one that I'm thinking of now. He was, at the time I started, he was probably 60 years old, and he had been plumbing since he was 18 years old.
Wow.
And he loved it. You could tell he ate, slept, breathed plumbing. Like he just really was interested in plumbing. It's still at 60 years old.
Right.
And so working with him made me very excited about the career.
Right.
Now, some guys that I didn't like, the same type of thing, was the guys who were just doing it because that's the job they could get. Those guys were not happy. They weren't happy with their job. They weren't they wanted to get off early every day. They didn't want to stay and finish the job. And it just wasn't very enjoyable working with them.
Right. Interesting. Cool. So how about some other bigger subjects are like health and money? Like what about money in the trades surprised you as far as how did money come? Was it hard or easy? Or?
It came pretty easy once I was a technician. So I bought a house when I was 21 years old, which is not very common.
Wow.
Because as an apprentice, you are paid to learn. Going to college, you're spending an incredible amount of money to learn for jobs that aren't guaranteed after necessarily.
Right.
So I had a head start on saving, and then it was a very it was a pretty cheap house, but it was a house nonetheless.
Absolutely.
I was approved for a loan and got a house, and but I didn't make a ton of money. It was just that I had no debt and was able to save some. It's not till it takes several years after that to really maybe start making what you would say really good money. I would say. So, and it also depends on where you work, what area of the country.
Right. Different areas are.
Yeah, right. Seattle is an incredible plumbing market.
Wow, interesting. What do you think makes it that way? Like I hear Florida doesn't pay their plumbers well, and I'm always curious about that because everybody's moving there. It seems like it's a booming economy. But what do you see as the difference?
Well, some of it could just be the ratio of or the how many plumbers there are per capita. That might be a factor. I couldn't, between Seattle and Florida, I don't know, but that's probably a factor. Most of the times it's the plumbers who do it to themselves, because in certain markets it's a race to the bottom who can be the cheapest.
Right.
And so when guys are doing that, they ruin it for themselves and everybody else. Whereas a market like Seattle, there's companies who respect themselves and respect the trade more, and that helps everybody out.
So how do you stop that race to the bottom? Like what we're talking about is, like I experienced that too. One of the first things when I got into the trade 22 years ago, my first thing was like someone said they could do it for $1,000, and then another guy I can do it for 800 instead of like, or you ripped him off. I could have done it, or I would have done it for 600 instead of, how'd you get $1,000, dude? Like,
Right.
how'd you do that?
How do you stop that is the $1,000,000 question. I mean,
Or what do you think the mentality is that people do that? Like what if we could tell them one thing to think about differently to help them? Like everyone, it's a problem, right? It is a problem.
yeah. Well, one of the things is that they don't respect themselves on a certain level. They don't respect not themselves, but their career. They still view plumbing as maybe the way that kind of the bad stereotype of, it's easy to get into. It doesn't require, education. It's for people who were not good in school. And so I don't know, it's like they're stuck in that kind of mindset about their career.
So they're just a plumber,
Yeah, so they're self-deprecating,
right?
Um,
Where an attorney or some other person that you think is acceptable to charge a lot, they're
right.
they're actually proud of their career,
Right. Yeah,
and who they are.
that's correct. And additionally, so there are other guys. I can think of a person as I'm talking about
Sure.
this who is a very conscientious, skilled plumber, but he just couldn't handle price objections. He couldn't handle confrontation with customers. So in that market, it's like he never wanted to hear, oh, that's too much, or oh, that's outrageous. He didn't want to deal with that kind of thing. So it was almost, um, maybe more of just, like not being able to deal with that kind of confrontation. He wanted everybody to be happy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think at every like. So I've been running our company for 22 years, and there's a price objection every day, right?
Yeah.
And it was clear back when we were so much cheaper, there were price complaints.
Right.
I think it's just
The price doesn't ultimately matter as far as price objections. If they, and we've talked about this, is price is relative. When you say, is $500 a lot of money? Well, it depends on what you're talking about.
right.
Are you talking about a new car, or are you talking about a skateboard?
Right.
Right? Like,
Right.
you,
Totally.
so,
You have to compare it to something, otherwise there's no context.
right.
So I think that's what a lot of people do in the trades is they just give one price, and so that even the customer, like that's a rarity. Like no matter what you do, you go buy a loaf of bread. There's several brands of bread, and there's Wonder Bread all the way up to organic, dairy free, gluten free,
Right.
all wheat bread or whatever, right? There's all sorts of stuff out there. It's crazy
Options. Yeah.
options, and so let the customer choose what they value. Obviously people buy Wonder Bread because it's all over the place, and obviously people buy David's. Do you like David's bread?
I'm not, I don't know if I'm familiar with it.
Is it David's bread? I buy it all the time. I like it. I think it's David's. He actually was in prison. He has quite a story.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was in prison and got himself out of prison or something and ended up making bread, and it's really good. And he's got different ones. It's a little bit nicer bread.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, there's people buying at every level all the time, right?
Right.
Even inside our company, there's people that buy our cheapest option and people that buy our top option.
Right.
And I always think it's curious. You can't always tell who's going to buy which option. necessarily.
Yeah, not at all. It's I mean, you never assume what people are going to buy. I I mean, I've had people in trailers many times buy the top option that I gave them.
Wow.
It's not, and then I've had multi-millionaires who, you know, they don't, you just don't, you don't want to discriminate. You don't want to assume what people are going to buy. You'll limit yourself most of the times by that. You know, if you are trying to guess what kind of resources people have,
Sure,
you'll often be wrong. You know,
sure. Or how they value things. Like one thing I think in the trades is the truth is we were actually hoping some plumbing was going to break today. Actually, as plumbers, right? We're hoping the phone rings. That means people are inconvenienced. Their plumbing's bad. Something's wrong. There's tremendous inconvenience. For them, they're hoping, they never imagined their plumbing would ever break. Like I think America's done such a good they've done such a good job of plumbing that it hardly ever breaks, right? You turn the water on, it comes out.
Right.
And you turn it this way and it's hot. And it's amazing. It's drinkable and everything's great.
Right.
You push the button on the toilet and it disappears. And so it blows people's minds when it doesn't work. And they've never had to pay for it before.
It's worked for years, decades.
Yeah, decades.
Often.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we don't value our own selves as much as the customer often values ourselves.
Right.
They would go out. They're so happy for us to come and take care of it and get them back up and running. And there's always those customers that aren't very nice and don't respect anybody.
Always, yeah.
Always, at every price level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very cool. Another thing I'm starting to think about is that us tradespeople are actually professional athletes, really. We actually make money using our bodies.
That is, that's
like
true.
A football player plays football to make money. We fix plumbing to make money. But we're both using our bodies, and when our body breaks, our career ends.
That's true.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So are there things that you do to ensure that you're like health-wise and body-wise to help you have a longer career, stay healthy?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So my wife is a physical therapist. She's a pediatric physical therapist, though, but she's kind of helped me to think more about, it's called body mechanics is what she'll call it, is, how are you using your body, when you're lifting heavy things, you're keeping your back straight, you're using your legs, not your back, to lift.
Right.
You want to avoid twisting while you're lifting. Also, she talks about moving, when you can move your legs instead of your back, then do that. So say there's something, behind me, and, you want to reach. Sometimes it's easier to just reach back, but if you can actually turn your body and move your body to whatever it is you're reaching for, that helps prevent, because a lot of times I've talked to a lot of guys where back injuries, it was just from, twisting the wrong way or whatever. Right. So, being mindful of the way you're moving your body. And that's one thing. Knees, of course, are wearing knee pads is very important, but also when you can avoid kneeling or avoid, because some of it's the kneeling, but also just the up and down constantly, is hard on your knees. So you can't totally escape some of the realities of that, but you can do things to make your body last longer.
So knee pads. Do you have the pants where you stick the pad into your?
I do.
Awesome.
I don't have them in right now, but a lot of times sometimes it's easier to wear the ones that strap around. So, but a lot of guys like wearing the ones that are in your they have the built-in pocket so that
Right.
they're just always in there, Yeah.
Awesome. I just talked to an apprentice the other day. He's lost 15 pounds. I said, "You're looking like he's a newer apprentice," and maybe 6 months. And I go, "Hey, you're looking really good." And he goes, "Yeah, I lost 15 pounds." And I go, "Oh, that's got to feel good." He says, "You know what? It's actually made my job so much easier. It's so much easier to get in and out of the truck, and it makes the day so much better." And I was shocked. A young kid lost 15 pounds, and he's noticing a difference in the
Yeah.
work itself.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have way more than 15 pounds that we're carrying,
Yeah.
right? Not you. I'm talking about myself.
I need to gain 15
yeah,
pounds.
you need to
That's
gain
my-
15 pounds. I was going to say, I bet you spend a lot of time in crawl spaces because you're a little on the smaller
It
side.
helps it actually, there's times where it helps. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Very cool. All right. So you're a plumber and you're in high demand. So what is it about, like a lot of people are looking for, how do we find good plumbers? So what is it that, that us plumbing companies can do to attract, what attracted you to us? What does a plumbing company do to detract, or just would love to hear your perspective for other businesses?
Sure. I mean, you've got to talk about pay. Is you've got to be competitive. You've got to be in the top tier of, if you want to get the best guys, you've got to be able to pay them. Because at the end of the day, there are other factors like, not everybody's going to go somewhere else just so they can make another $5,000.
Right,
There's
right.
there's other things to value, but pay is important. Then other things to, I had several things that came to mind all at once. Now I'm trying to.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think, and so on the business side, well, we ran into this years ago. We had to figure this out. But if you want to pay top dollar, you're probably going to have to charge top dollar and be
Right.
worth top dollar. And you got to work to get to that level and build that reputation,
Right.
so you can pay top dollar, so you can attract the better plumbers.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely what has to happen, and that's also like we talked about earlier, was your employees are your customer, and they're your most valued customer. One thing to always do, always try to have your guys back. When when there's there's going to be customers who complain, and obviously you have to get to what the truth is. Like there are us technicians make mistakes for sure, but you want to try to have their back and have a trusting relationship. But you've got to be working with guys who are trustworthy, right? But
Right.
Treating them like you treat your most valued customers, because without your technicians, you don't have a company.
Right. So your number one customer is your plumber,
Yep.
right? And so have their back when issues come up. What does that look? So what does that look like? So if a company's struggling out there, what can they do how do they put the plumber first, like their first customer or primary customer?
I mean, listening to concerns of theirs, or to suggestions, to criticisms, right? Like, customers leave reviews, and it's pretty common. All professional companies seem to do this, is, hey, call us at this number and we want to find out, what happened. We want to get to the bottom, and see if we can and correct it, so having that approach with your technicians as well.
So ask for a review.
Yeah.
And then if there's criticism, try to make it right.
Right.
That seems so simple, but we hardly ever do it, right? Like, it's not very often the plumbers that us employers are asking for reviews from our should be our number one customer, right?
Right. And I mean, that's coming from my end, but obviously
Sure.
as an employer, you're the boss and you've got to be in charge, and you can't let,
Yeah, there's a balance.
everybody has their own opinion too. All the techs
Sure.
are going to disagree with each other sometimes.
Sure. But just having even that communication makes sense.
Yeah. Right.
What makes you not like a company? What does a company do to make them consider leaving?
Oh, when they lie,
That was fast.
when they lie to you about
Wow. Okay.
if it's going to be pay, or if it's going to be, if they, and there are a lot of companies that do that, and that all, even so us moving back to the East Coast, I've been interviewing, and there are companies that'll tell me there was one company in particular that told me what I would make or what I could make, and I just, it's not true. And there,
You weren't born yesterday.
yeah, and that, so there are companies that'll do that, that'll blatantly lie, mainly because when it's commission, technically it's performance based, and so technically you can make whatever you want, right? But
Right.
so that sort of stuff.
Right. I so commission and hourly. What's the what which one do you prefer? Why do you like one or the other?
Right. So with commission, I used to be skeptical of commission, thinking that, if you're working on commission, it's going to breed dishonesty with sales, right? Because it directly affects the technician's pay. But on the other hand, so I've worked hourly as well, and with hourly, it really doesn't matter to you if you recommend, if you see a problem, and you know that this is a problem that needs to be fixed. But the temptation is, like, why even bring it up, where it's like, I can get back in the truck, drive to the next customer. I'm getting paid while I'm driving. I'm getting paid while I'm doing the work. And so it's like, I just care about 8 hours. That's the downside of hourly.
And the dispatcher wants you to move on anyway, probably.
Right. Yeah. And so there's two sides to that, where sometimes it's, you can, the honest thing to do is to sell more, because if the customer needs it, or at least, offer more. But with hourly, it's not exactly fair, because it's what the guys bring to the table doesn't really matter if they're getting paid hourly. There's no incentive. So a better technician who will finish a job more efficiently will get paid less for doing that job, and so that doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, to me, it's never made sense to me, because the more proficient you get, the more times you've seen it, so the time you're going to do it right, you're not going to do it wrong, and the more you invest in the right tool for the right job, all that stuff, the harder it is to make more money.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But hourly, you should send your least experienced person.
Yeah.
With not the right tools.
And the material, it's like, okay, why would I want to show up with a fully stocked truck when I can drive to the supply house and I'm still getting paid the same,
Right.
And it's, but, back to commission and that whole question of, dishonesty with that. Ultimately, if somebody's going to be dishonest, they're going to be dishonest in some way. It'll manifest itself differently, if whether, yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. I believe that too. It's not the pay structure is dishonest. It's the tech.
Yeah.
So we got to be really careful about that.
Right.
Yeah. Very cool. I had another question. It had to do with commission. No, I lost it. What else should we talk about? for apprentices or techs out there.
Well, we touched somewhat on. No, we already talked about that. It's just going to talk the physical, aspect of the job, the difficulty, and
Yeah. Do you do anything? So you talked about the biomechanics. Do you do anything like vitamins or minerals, or do you have any protein drinks? Is there anything that you found that's helpful or that you do?
So I should do a much better job of that. I'm 26, so I'm kind of like I'll be 27 next month. So
Okay.
but I am hitting the point where I am getting more tired. We just had we have a 3-month-old baby.
Congratulations.
And yeah, so
Awesome.
I'm kind of getting to that point where I realize that what you eat, your sleep, all those sorts of things do have a direct impact on you.
For sure.
The younger you are, the more you can get by with not thinking about those things. But
Right.
it's better to start preemptively. So yeah.
Do you have in mind what you want to start, or any thoughts?
I would say exercise outside of work, and that can be difficult because of how tired you can be physically, just because sometimes the job can be physically demanding. So it can be hard to squeeze in exercise with that, mainly to get started with that. Whereas, but an old coworker of mine, he worked out every single day, and he had endless energy in the field. And he was in his mid to late 30s at that point.
Oh wow!
And he just had incredible endurance on the job, and he had gotten up at 5 and works out hard. And so by exercising, you get more energy out of it. So, but it's starting that's you're
Get
gonna
the routine underway.
right. Yeah.
Very cool. How about money? One thing I see going wrong all the time is young people in the trades shockingly start to make decent money, and then it's again like the pro athlete. All of a sudden he goes and buys a new truck and buys some stuff, and always all of a sudden he's in trouble. Do you have any habits or like our parents always say, well, save money, but do you have anything deeper than that? Like, this is what we do. Like every Thursday night we do this, or we religiously do this with or any hints like that to give an apprentice a traction on what to do with his money?
Well, I'm no expert, but
You did buy your first house when you were 21.
well, I wasn't an expert then, and I don't.
Perfect.
Well, I would say, the less you can kind of turn it into something where you enjoy seeing your savings account increase.
Yeah.
And you can kind of turn it into a habits of like, not pulling your card out all the time. And one big thing is, so plumbers we like to eat out every day for lunch, buying snacks nonstop at the gas station.
Totally.
And that, I don't, so up until the last 6 months or so, 9 months, probably about the time that my wife got pregnant or so.
Yeah.
That was me. So I was, you're just kind of spending on all these, yeah. But just start packing your lunch, and that, it's not just the lunch itself, but it's I'm not going to go, I don't ever go into gas stations anymore. And so you don't see those snacks there and like spending money on that. And, so yeah, you're pulling your wallet out less often. You're just coming prepared. You can work longer because you don't need to drive out and take a lunch break. That's like one practical thing.
Right. Do you have any idea how much you're spending? We call it Scooby snacks.
Yeah, right. I have no idea, but it really does add up.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot of money.
It'd be shocking. Like if you especially if you got an apprentice with you, right? Like if you got an apprentice with you, most techs, if you leave your apprentice work and you come back,
Yeah.
you're probably going to come back with something for the apprentice,
Right.
typically.
That's a good, you could say that's a traditional thing to do, is that, that your apprentice is putting in hard work for you. So you should take care of them, Yeah.
Right. Very good. So pack your lunch. That makes that saves you money and it's probably more healthy, I would think.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Right.
What do you pack for lunch?
Mostly most days just a sandwich. And then, so instead of going to the gas station and say buying a bag of Cheez-Its or something, we buy a box of it at the grocery store.
Sure.
Same thing applies for any, it doesn't mean you can't have snacks. It's just buy them at a grocery store in bulk, right? So,
Right.
But yeah, most of the times I'm just, turkey sandwich. That's probably my go-to.
And some Cheez-Its.
Cheez-Its, a lot of Cheez-Its.
Cool.
I like oranges, Yeah.
Cool. We have one of our guys. I think he's lost like 30 pounds, and all he did was cut out sugary drinks. He still eats candy and chips. He goes, "Don't get me wrong, I'm not strict or anything. I just quit drinking pop."
Oh yeah. Well, that's another. There's plumbers have we do have a lot of unhealthy habits that I've picked up on some being in plumbing. You do have to watch out, like energy drinks, because it is a tiring job.
Sure.
So, I would say, I feel like at least 50% of plumbers drink energy drinks every day.
Right.
Nicotine is a huge vice in plumbing, and you do have to watch out for that because it doesn't discriminate on who gets addicted to that, Yeah. So
I think it's cultural too, right? Like,
yeah,
we can stop this. Like just part of my thought is just let's start thinking of ourselves as the professional athlete that we really are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And start taking care of our bodies and not thinking we're just a dumb plumber or whatever we think, and think of ourselves higher and take care of our bodies and some of those negative habits will naturally start to go away.
Right. That's totally the case because you look at, doctors or other types of professionals, they're completely avoiding energy drinks.
Sure.
They're avoiding nicotine, there's other worse stuff that you'll find out there for sure. But you're right. It is a cultural kind of thing. Like everybody does it in the trade, that sort of thing. It's accepted, but you're right. Is, changing your perspective on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, Ben, whoever you work for next is going to be super lucky. You've been a pleasure to have here working. I don't know anybody that has a negative thing to say about you. You're easy to work with. You're a fantastic salesperson. You're a great plumber. Hardly ever a callback.
I appreciate that.
Easy to work with.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna miss you guys probably more than you'll miss me.
Awesome. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Awesome. Well, great luck in your future.
Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.